Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over chapter 13 in our digital age book for physics, and it is on visibility of the radiographic images. So, visibility is measured and has three requirements for it to be visible, and those are contrast, brightness, and move it over, and noise. Now, the reason I separated these out is so that you could understand a little bit better, because I'm going to tell you the 3 requirements that pertain to each one of these. Contrast, you're going to want an optimum level, which is your intermediate level. I'm sorry if I'm not spelling words right, but in that intermediate level, and that's like your sweet spot, the middle. You don't want too much, you don't want not enough. Also, brightness is at an optimum level, and noise is at your minimum, is at a minimum. You do not want you want to minimize all the noise that you can, and that would be because noise is bad. Noise is anything that obstructs the view of your anatomy or ruins the information in your image. Any image that has noise obstructing it, or if the brightness and contrast are not at an optimum level, then that is going to cause your image to be considered a silhouette. Which is bad. Now, a good image that has both that has an optimum level of contrast, an optimum level of brightness, and minimum noise is considered a diagnostic image, which is good. Alright, now going down, zoom in a little bit so I can get closer. Our image is automatically going to be a negative image. Now, when you hear negative, you always think bad, but that is not what it is in this case. A negative image is where your anatomy or object is a light shade of gray. Because remember, it's not really white or black, it's shades of gray. On a dark background. Now, at some hospitals, the radiologist might require you to transform it at the computer to a positive image. And it shows the same exact amount of anatomy and everything. It just might help you. It might help the radiologist see something maybe he thought he wouldn't see on there. And so whatever institution you go to, or hospital, or wherever you go to, the radiologist is going to pretty much choose what you have, or what you need to do. So a positive image is where your anatomy / object is a dark shade of gray, almost black, on a white, or on a light, I'm sorry, not white, background. But remember that all of our images are going to come out negative, but our radiologist might ask us to do either both or one of the other. It just depends on which radiologist you're with. Moving on. Now we're going to contrast. Contrast is divided ratio between the brightness of two adjacent details. So contrast is the divided ratio between the brightness of two adjacent details. Now remember, we want our contrast kept at an optimum level, because if we have too much contrast, then that is bad. It will result in loss of detail. If we have not enough contrast, that also will result in a loss of detail. So we want that optimum middle line. We want it to be even. And now we're also going to go talk about the grayscale. The grayscale is completely opposite of contrast. The grayscale is going to be a range of brightness. Now, with the grayscale, you need to know that the grayscale is just all the different types of shades of gray that could be in an image. If you have I'm going to do this in a different color because it's very, very important. If you have a long grayscale, that would mean low contrast. And the way you can remember this one is think of low, 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 low. Long grayscale equals low contrast. The next one, of course, is going to be if you have a short grayscale, that means you are going to have high contrast. Sometimes we also might add contrast agents to the body so that we can see it better. And those agents are iodine, barium, and air. And one of the reasons we use barium is because it has a high atomic number. Contrast, also we need to remember that contrast at the control panel is controlled side to side. Your brightness is controlled up and down on the side. And you always are going to want to you're always going to want to adjust your contrast before your brightness. So this one is adjusted first, this one is adjusted next. Always remember that. Now, when we're getting to noise, we know that we said earlier that noise is bad, correct? So noise equals bad. Now, the most common, we know that noise is created by scatter. But also, noise is anything that obstructs our anatomy of interest, or information that we need to get off of this image to be able to make it, to be able to give it to the radiologist and then them give it to the doctor so they can make a diagnostic, like they can diagnose their patient. Now, the most common type of noise at the IR is scatter. But the most common type of noise on our displayed image is image model. Now, I also want you to remember that image model can be interchanged with quantum model. That is just another word for it. Image model which is quantum model noise is directly related to the number of X-ray photons exiting the patient and forming the image. So we know that scatter ruins our contrast. Now, sometimes, you know, they say in direct radiography that you can go up to the computer and you can manipulate this image. If you don't have enough of something, maybe you can add a little bit to manipulate it. But sometimes that doesn't always work, and that is because the imperfections in the computer reconstruction algorithms, and that is known as algorithmic noise. So when our software tries to clean up an image, it doesn't always work, and that is because of the algorithmic noise. Now, moving on to SNR, which is signal to noise ratio. Now, I want you to know that you are going to want to increase S, which is our signal, without increasing your noise. You're going to want to get as much of that signal as you can, but you want to get the smallest amount of noise, the minimum amount, remember? Also, SNR, which is signal to ratio, measures the overall visibility of information. And, well guys, that's about it on chapter 13. Please stay tuned and I'll go to my next video on chapter 14. Thank y'all.